was a Bitcoin. Yep. Yep. Yes.
What is up, Bitcoiners? Your boy has just been banging out podcast after podcast. This is my third podcast of the day, and you are going to be listening to it in a little bit. But, y'all, this was a great conversation. Dave Bradley. Dave is a Bitcoin OG entrepreneur, a co-founder of Bull Bitcoins and Bitcoin Brains, which came before it. And now he's at a company called Bitcoinwell, and they are a publicly traded company in Canada that is all about making Bitcoin as accessible as possible. They have white glove over-the-counter Bitcoin services where grandmas come in and learn about how to take self-custody of their Bitcoin. They have Bitcoin ATMs across Canada. They're creating Bitcoin ATM software that goes into like traditional normal ATMs and turns them into Bitcoin ATMs. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. They have a wallet. They bought Rise Wallet. I'm sure lots of you have heard of them. So they're doing tons and tons of stuff in the Canadian Bitcoin market. And again, really interesting company. And again, Dave is a Bitcoin entrepreneur from early Bitcoin days. So he has seen Bitcoin evolve since 2010, which is absolutely incredible. That is enough for me. Let's just get into this podcast with Dave Bradley. Yes. Bitcoiners, I am sitting across from a Bitcoin OG and someone who's been building in Bitcoin for as long as you can be building in Bitcoin. Dave Bradley from Bitcoinwell and, formerly from Bull Bitcoin and Satoshi Portal and a ton of other great names in the OG Bitcoin space. Dave, welcome to the Bitcoin Magazine podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So I guess, Dave, for those who are unfamiliar with you, I think that there's a lot of newbies who may not know about like your lineage. Why don't you kind of just talk about, getting into Bitcoin, start being an entrepreneur in Bitcoin and, what's the impetus for now, building out Bitcoinwell?
Sure. I got into Bitcoin late 2010, right around the time that GPU mining became a thing. And I was mining in my basement with a single gaming computer. And then turning around and selling the Bitcoins that I mined on local Bitcoins. And that was right around the time there was a big price bump. I want to say to like $14. And so my first GPU that I bought for mining had paid for itself in, 2 weeks or something like that. And I was like, well, this is pretty good. Back then I was looking at it as like a lot of people who get into Bitcoin, just a way to make some more dollars, more fiat. And I didn't see it as like the world-changing technology that I think most of us see it as now. But that's kind of where I got my start. And then, I think the only one in my city for sure, probably my region of the country selling Bitcoin. And it got to the point where I was meeting people at a coffee shop a couple times a day, taking cash for Bitcoin. And the coffee shop probably thought I was a drug dealer. So I was like, you know what, like, it's time to make this into a real business. That was 2013 when we founded Bitcoin Brains, which was my first Bitcoin business. It was a brick and mortar store where we sold Bitcoins, we sold mining equipment, and just about anything else we could get our hands on related to Bitcoin. I think that was probably the first in the world in terms of a brick and mortar store actually selling this kind of stuff. It's the first I'd ever heard of anyway. So fast forward a couple of years, we sold that physical store to one of our competitors and moved on from that. But we kept the Bitcoin brokerage going, so we're still buying and selling Bitcoins. And then kept running that for a couple of years. And then 2018 came along, and I had been talking with my co-founder Francis at Bull Bitcoin for a long time, and we've been doing business together for years, and we decided that we would merge our two businesses to create what is now Bull Bitcoin, my Bitcoin Brains and his Satoshi Portal. And that's where the brainchild for Bull Bitcoin came from. And that was very much in the line of what you're talking about. Bitcoin only, Bitcoin maximalist, non-custodial, proudly Canadian. And then after that, I left Bull Bitcoin at the start of 2020 to form a company making software for Bitcoin ATMs called Ghost Lab, and that kind of got me sucked into Bitcoinwell through a partnership with the founder Adam O'Brien that I work with now, and that's where I'm at now, is trying to make Bitcoin more accessible as many ways as possible.
Awesome. And I guess if you could break down like Bitcoinwell, y'all do a wide variety of different services in Canada, including hosting ATMs, providing ATMs, selling Bitcoin, enabling people to have like a Bitcoin savings plan. Can you talk about all the different kind of like features and things that are available on there?
Yeah, so we've got a lot going. The core of the business is the Bitcoin ATMs, and that's pretty much an on-ramp where people can buy Bitcoin with cash. That's a pretty simple business, but that's where we make most of our money. The next side that's been really taken off this year is kind of our white glove service, which is the over-the-counter in-person service. We're seeing a lot of new people getting into the space. We're seeing a lot of older demographic than we've seen in the past deciding to get into Bitcoin. Those are the people with money in the bank, and those are the people that are getting hit the hardest by this money printing. So we're seeing a lot of people, putting some of that nest egg into Bitcoin to hide from inflation. So that part of the business has been taking off. Most of what we do right now is sort of that on and off ramp stuff. So we have different ways to do that. We have a wallet app called, right now it's called Rise Wallet. It's a company that we purchased 2 years ago that also has a gift card component. So you can go to a store, buy like $100 gift card, load it into your wallet, you get the Bitcoin at the time that you load the card. So just another on ramp. What we're starting to work on next, both to build into the wallet and to the website, are ways to actually interact with the way that people use Bitcoin. So we can get them the Bitcoin, get them into the wallet, get them self-custodying their own coins. But then, if they want to go and use that, we want to expand that usability all in the same wallet. So we've got the ability to buy gift cards like some other services have out there. We've got the ability to pay utility bills, phone bills, whatever. And we're just going to be expanding on those different things that you can use Bitcoin right in the wallet.
Awesome. And like the wallet itself is non-custodial, you use non-custodial as part of the marketing. I have a lot of questions to just ask you about this demographic shift and user shifts. I'm sure the ATMs give you a lot of interesting insight into Bitcoin usage. But let's talk really about like the wallet app, and I guess like how you're thinking about like creating like this ecosystem that is built on a non-custodial wallet.
Yeah, non-custodial is very important to us. We don't want to be at risk of holding our customers' Bitcoins. We've seen that go bad countless times. I don't know how many times it has to go bad before people will finally learn that they shouldn't trust anyone else to hold their keys. So we just saw that with Coinbase recently. We've had a couple of really big hacks like that, the Quadriga debacle in Canada here, and I think Canadians at least are a little spooked from allowing others to hold their Bitcoins. So that's where we come in. Our service doesn't rely on our wallet. We can sell people Bitcoins with any wallet, but we do have our own wallet that we recommend and that we're building to be as good as anything in the space, we think.
Awesome. And like, I guess, is the wallet like more centered around Canadians, or like, is this something that is kind of interoperable for international people?
Yeah, it's completely interoperable. It's just another wallet. It's nothing special in terms of the actual core features of the wallet. Where it is a little bit unique to Canada is we're just putting our payment rails in there so that people can buy Bitcoins right in the wallet. When we first launch that'll be Canada only. And right now, those gift cards, we could technically sell them anywhere, but they are only available right now in Canada. So other than that, it is usable anywhere.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I didn't even realize that Bitcoinwell had purchased Rise Wallet. I remember Rise Wallet, I thought the Bitcoin gift card ideas and you just redeem it on non-custodial wallet was a really awesome idea. So I guess just kind of going to ATMs, I know you're actually at an ATM conference right now, trying to orange pill as many of these ATM providers as possible. Like, what is the what's the landscape like in ATMs these days? Like, what kind of insight do you have around like Bitcoin usage? Because I feel like the people who don't have bank accounts that are unbanked, those are the most likely people to actually use a Bitcoin ATM because they can't get access to Bitcoin in another way.
Yeah, absolutely. It really taps into the cash economy. We find that a lot of the time, people who are using our ATMs, and granted, we don't talk to them most of the time because they're at an automatic machine, but when we do talk to them, we find a lot of really niche use cases. Sometimes we find that people are basically using Bitcoin as a payment tool in a lot of these cases. So an example of that was we had, and this was actually in our office rather than our ATMs, but I think the story applies. Is we had a whole high school class come in, and they all had to buy $500 worth of Bitcoin because they were going on a class trip to Mexico, and the tour operator where they were going normally would take deposits with a credit card, and kids would drop out. Parents would say you're not going to go, and then they would charge back the card. And in that case, what was the point of really even having a deposit, right? So the tour operator was in no position to fight with Visa or MasterCard, being a small tour operator, and so they basically said, you know what, screw it, like let's go Bitcoin only, and those payments will be irreversible. So that's like one little niche case where Bitcoin serves these areas where the traditional payments systems are not working very well, and that drives a lot of the usage at the ATMs. And then, as you said, yeah, like the underbanked, the unbanked, people who deal in the cash economy.
I feel like there's a lot to be learned, maybe not about like interviewing the users, but based on like which neighborhoods the ATMs end up like kind of like seeing the most business or getting the most traction. Can you talk a little bit about, you have ATMs across Canada. Um, do you have any insights kind of about, again, Bitcoin usage amongst, maybe people who tend to not have bank account, tend to be unbanked or underbanked?
Um, we don't really see strong trends by demographics. We tried tracking that stuff, thinking there should be some data in there for us, but really, what we find makes a good Bitcoin ATM location is more to do with access than the neighborhood. So if you have long hours in the store and it's easy to get in there and it's clean and it feels safe, then those are going to be the ones that do well. And that'll happen in any kind of area.
Gotcha. What else can you talk about, like with ATM users or kind of trends of like Bitcoin users?
Um, I mean, we're seeing a massive explosion in terms of users. We just had some research done from Ipsos, and I want to say it was 14% of Canadians now own or have owned Bitcoin. So we're seeing a massive increase from the last time numbers came out about that was a study from the Bank of Canada in 2018, which I think was 5%. So we're getting a lot more adoption broadly. And in terms of the ATM space, I think there's now maybe 28,000 Bitcoin ATMs in the world, and uh, probably about half of those were deployed in 2021. So they're exploding, especially across North America. The US and Canada are by far leading the way for Bitcoin ATM deployment, but as a whole, the industry is growing extremely, extremely fast.
Can you talk a little bit about like the conference that you're at? You said it's an ATM industry show, but it's like half Bitcoin. Like what's that like?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's a traditional ATM conference, so it's all these companies, Triton and Hyosung, and these people that have been operating regular cash ATMs for decades, and they're kind of like they're a fairly small community. They all seem to know each other, but now the Bitcoin people are getting in here, and you've got a bunch of Bitcoin ATM operators with booths here. You've got companies making software to run like Bitcoin ATM like features on a traditional ATM, and all kinds of I spoke with a guy yesterday that I had never met who has his company has installed more than 50% of all the Bitcoin ATMs in North America. So uh, the Bitcoin space is very much creeping into the traditional ATM space, and they're becoming sort of one large ATM space.
It makes sense. Bitcoin is digital cash. ATMs are automatic cash machines. Like, uh, I don't know if you are a Bitcoin Tina fan, but one of his quotes that's one of my favorites is Bitcoin's like water. Can't stop it, and it gets everywhere. And the ATM space is definitely some low hanging fruit for digital cash.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, is there like a pretty big embrace? Like, how long do you think until like that conference is 100% Bitcoin ATM conference? Like something like that merges that. It's like Bitcoin and cash. That's the whole point of ATMs.
Yeah, I think we're going to get there pretty soon with a lot of these software solutions and whatnot. I think it's going to become, it's going to be, we're going to get to a point where every ATM in the world can sell Bitcoin at some point fairly soon.
When does like a Chase ATM or Wells Fargo ATM just say fuck it, we're gonna do it? Like, does that happen the next
Yeah.
couple of years? Like, they're already making their NIDEG partnerships and whatever all the news companies flash in the headlines.
Yeah, that's a tougher one. When I say that I think that you're going to be able to buy it at every ATM in the world, I mean every independent ATM. Those bank ATMs, it's kind of a weird spot for the banks because they obviously want to get in on the industry. They see the hype, they want to collect some fees. And their instinct, though, is to wall everything off and control everything, right? So whereas we perform a lot of the same services as a bank in terms of, allowing people to move money around and helping people out like that, we don't wall anyone in. So people can use our wallet. They can use a different wallet. We don't want to hold those coins. And I think the banks are going to take the opposite approach, which is to, sell people Bitcoin, which is really just probably synthetic exposure to the price of Bitcoin with an IOU to the bank. And whether or not the banks actually hold that Bitcoin or not, who knows? And whether or not the banks can keep that Bitcoin safe is a whole other question. So I wouldn't see the big banks jumping in to the business of buying and selling Bitcoin, actual Bitcoin, anytime soon.
Okay. I mean, like you probably have a better vantage point than I do. I definitely believe the hype. I think that they're going to have no choice from a competitive perspective to jump in. And like we've seen even Robinhood, like I don't know if their plan was always to build a wallet or if they're bending the knee now, but their CTO of crypto is like a Bitcoin technician, like a true, like someone who actually knows like the tech around this and other blockchains. And, they're building an actual wallet within Robinhood. So, we have seen like, it seems like PayPal is like posturing as if they're doing the same. So it seems as though like the withdraw feature at least is becoming something that's kind of like an industry standard, which definitely makes me feel good. But we'll see how things go, for sure. So I guess I'm kind of curious, like one of the biggest criticisms on the Bitcoin ATMs and some of these like more P2P solutions is like how much more like expensive it is than just going to your Strike app or your Cash app or something like that. Can you talk about like the development of the space and like will be like I understand why people pay the fees again if they only have cash, like they have no choice. But I'm kind of curious, like what's the development of the fees for Bitcoin ATMs?
Yeah, we've played with the fees a lot. We haven't found that the users are very price sensitive at the moment. Most of the time, it's basically a convenience service. They're either like you said, they only have cash, and so that's their only way in, or they are just willing to pay a little bit more because it's fast and it's easy. You get your Bitcoins immediately as compared to pretty much any other service. There's almost always at least some kind of a wait time to sign up or get approved or make your payment. So I think in the long term, we're probably going to see a lot more fee pressure. And part of the reason for that is because of that software that that I was talking about right now. Deploying Bitcoin ATMs is very capital intensive. Like you need to buy dedicated hardware for each unit, right? So if we could just deploy the ability to sell Bitcoins onto a traditional ATM, we can do that in a way that does not require a massive capital outlay, and that I think will allow for tightening of the fees across the board.
Yo, what is going on, plebs? We're going to take a break from our programming to tell you about the resurrection of our print magazine, starting with the El Salvador issue. Starting this fall, Bitcoin Magazine will be available on newsstands nationwide and at retail stores such as Barnes and Noble. Don't want to get off your couch though? No problem. You can also go to store.bitcoinmagazine.com. So skip the line and get each issue shipped directly to your front door with our annual subscription. I'm talking 4 issues a year that contain exclusive interviews and profiles with leading Bitcoiners, actionable insights on the state of the market, breaking news and cultural trends, along with powerful photos and artwork from the best artists in the world. Subscribe today and get 21% off using code podcast at checkout. That's PODCAST podcast at checkout.
All right, Bitcoiners, I want to tell you about our newest sponsor. This show is brought to you by Ledn.io. I have been super, super impressed with the guys over at Ledn. I've actually known the co-founders, Adam and Mauricio, for a very long time. I've had the pleasure to watch them build Ledn up from a tiny, tiny startup to now a super impressive institutional grade Bitcoin and crypto lender. Y'all, I'm so impressed with these guys. They are offering some of the best rates out there. I don't think anyone even comes close to touching them. You can get 6.1% APY on your first 2 Bitcoin that you deposit into Ledn interest accounts, and you can get 8.5% US on USDC deposits. I mean, I know all the competitors. They're not even close. If you're going to put your crypto and your Bitcoin into an interest account, Ledn is by far the best. And on top of that, like I said, these guys are hardcore Bitcoiners, and they know the products and the services that Bitcoiners want and appreciate. They come up with B2X. It allows you to put your Bitcoin in, they leverage it up, and you can, with one click of the mouse, get twice the exposure to Bitcoin. So if you're super bullish, Ledn has you covered with a super, super easy way to get leverage with B2X. And then on top of that, they know that Bitcoiners care about your reserves. They know that Bitcoiners don't like under reserved and not full reserved financial institutions. So they are pushing the frontier in transparency in the digital asset lending space. And they are the first digital asset lender to do a full proof of reserves and proof of attestation through a Mariano LLC, a public accounting firm. So the Ledn guys, they know what Bitcoiners like. They are legit. I encourage you guys to check them out. Do your own research and go to Ledn.io. That is LEDN.io and learn more. Is that something that Bitcoinwell is working on as well? I know that there are companies trying to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we what I mentioned is myself and my co-founder Adam started a software company called Ghost Lab, and that company is primarily to make better software for Bitcoin ATMs. But one of the other goals is to get that software also onto traditional ATMs. So we've got a small pilot project running right now where we've got, I think, about 35 units deployed with a local Edmonton-based ATM operator, and it's running Bitcoin on there, and has been working well since the start of the year. So we're definitely working on that. We're not the only ones working on that, and I think that's going to take off quite significantly in the next couple of years.
I mean, that in terms of like Bitcoin integrating with cash and cash users, I feel like that's like the most bullish development, right? Is every ATM in the first world, has Bitcoin, every independent ATM. It just like how can any company compete with that, right? It's incredible.
Yeah, the more different on-ramps people have, I think the more competitive the fee environment will get, and the more flexible it'll be for people to put their money into Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, where do you see the future there, right? Is it like, ultimately Bitcoin integrates with everything. Everyone has a wallet, everyone gets paid in Bitcoin. Then like, obviously onboarding into Bitcoin isn't probably going to be super cheap, but what's that next like big step?
Yeah, I think the big step that you're talking about eventually is we put ourselves out of business, right? Because nobody has any more dollars. But in the meantime, we're basically just working to build as many different ways as we can for people to get that money into Bitcoin. So that's kind of the transition process. The next step after that, I think, is that usability piece. So the more ways that we can make it easy to use Bitcoin right from your wallet, and it's gotta compete on user experience with like your traditional online banking, which, for the average transaction, if you want to use your online banking, if you want to pay with your credit card or Apple Pay or whatever, like those transactions are pretty good, right? The user experience is pretty good. And for Bitcoin to win, for Bitcoin to get to that point where it's a real medium of exchange, it's got to be at least as good as those methods.
I mean, I feel like right now, Bitcoin is kind of like the ecosystem in terms of usability is a little bit of like DIY. Like it's almost like a coupon cutter strategy where it's like, hey, you get all this back if you use this, or if you buy this, or you put your bank deposit into here and then, you know, buy with this. So I feel like just the more streamlined it gets and the easier it gets and the more just like one hub for finance the UX has become, it's going to be a big deal, you know, and that's what's going to help a lot of people start banking on Bitcoin. But like you already see the strategy, it's like coming together, and you know, I'm pretty confident that Bitcoin will offer a superior kind of banking and finance experience for the average person, like pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think we're just getting to the point where we're getting some serious attention right across the space put into product and put into the UX and the delivery and all of that good stuff that we didn't really see. You know, what we saw for the first like 5 to 10 years of Bitcoin development, a lot of that stuff was sort of software built by nerds for nerds, which worked great, but wasn't really that accessible for your grandma.
So talking about grandma, you mentioned that you're seeing a lot more of an older demographic kind of come in. I'm not sure exactly how they prefer to interact with your services. Can you talk a little bit about the older demographic, like from a Bitcoin magazine perspective, just to add like our experience to this? We put out an educational course that was like kind of intended and written by a Zoomer, a younger person, about like what is Bitcoin. And a very large percentage of the users identified as being, you know, older generation, boomers, stuff like that, people interested in learning about Bitcoin. So we've definitely seen a very big uptick from boomers, people who are worried about inflation. You know, they've been hearing about Bitcoin. So I'm kind of curious what your experience has been.
Yeah, I think as the general awareness that you know, we can't just print money forever grows. Like I think I have these conversations all the time, and it's very common that when I bring that up, everyone agrees, right? Everyone agrees that money printing is out of control. Everyone agrees that inflation is not really 2 or 3%, and people understand that side of things, but they don't necessarily immediately grasp how Bitcoin can help them hide from that. And so that's sort of where we're coming in. Is we call it our white glove service, which is, you know, we've got offices in Calgary and Edmonton. Somebody can come in and actually sit down with one of our experts, and they'll walk them through an in-person setup of a hardware wallet or a mobile wallet or whatever it is more appropriate for them, and just sort of get them started, sell them their first Bitcoins, and get them on their way. And we're seeing a lot, you know, that 50 to 75-year-old demographic. But the other thing that I've noticed is we're seeing a lot of people from rural areas. So we're seeing a lot of farmers and ranchers and whatnot. These are people who probably have a little bit more distrust for the government to begin with, and they're probably a little bit more comfortable with like the cash under the mattress versus, you know, having all your money in the bank. So that's where we're seeing a big uptick, I think, and that's probably accounting for a pretty significant portion of our actual total sales at this point.
That's interesting. So like, you know, again, you've been in Bitcoin since you said 2010, right? So, you know, you've seen like the evolution almost from like cypherpunk to like hardcore libertarians to like, you know, intellectuals and farmers and, you know, all kinds of people now that are starting to like grasp onto the Bitcoin narrative. Can you just kind of walk through that journey and like what that has, you know, what that's been like?
Yeah, I mean, when we opened that first store in 2013, it was 95, maybe 98% men that would come into our store. Pretty much all like 40 and under, and pretty similar personality types. You know, lots of nerdy guys coming in buying Bitcoin early on there. So we've seen that evolve. Most notably, you know, we're still overrepresented with men in the space comparatively, but I think we're getting close to, we're probably in the range of about 60-40 in terms of our customer base at this point. And I think that was, I'll have to, I know we've got a blog post that came out recently about that research that we had done from Ipsos, and it's got some stats in there. So that'd be worth checking out. So that's been one big change. And then, yeah, we've started to see a lot more blue collar people getting in, a lot more older people getting in. And, we're getting to the point where it's like, there isn't really a fixed Bitcoin demographic anymore. We're getting pretty much everyone.
I mean, Bitcoin is money and Bitcoin is for everyone. We've been saying this for a long time. So it's nice to see that, start to become more and more confirmed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that everyone has an interest in. Everyone likes money. Everyone needs money, and money is the context of how we interact with each other. And once people realize that it's the best money available, everyone needs Bitcoin.
So, I mean, talk to me a little bit more about Bitcoin price. Again, you've seen the price do a lot of things. It's been acting very volatile as of recent and just chopping around. And I know the traders love that, but people are saying this is a bull market. I think, most Bitcoiners will 100% say it's a bull market. I would definitely say so. But so what does that mean to you? Is Bitcoin a legitimate asset? Are we going to continue to see these kind of 4-year cycles? What are you seeing here?
I get asked about price a lot. And I'm kind of numb to it at this point. I don't really check it on a daily basis anymore. I used to be, glued to my phone watching it for years, trying to calculate, how much money I had made or lost in this swing, right? But I've stopped doing that quite a while ago. And, in terms of predicting where the price is going to go, my best guesses at predicting price have always been to go against what the prevailing logic is. So if everybody that I know thinks it's going up, then I think it's probably going down. That's usually my take. But you can almost feel it when you're doing brokerage, because you end up getting when we're nearing a top, all of the smartest people come in and sell, and then the people that are buying at that price are the people who are really buying on FOMO and hype, and you can kind of feel these are the people where you set an appointment for them for noon, and they're like, can I come in any earlier? I don't want the price to go up any higher, kind of thing. They're panicking to get in this very moment. And so that's been my best insight on price. But I don't know, man. It makes a certain degree of sense that we should keep seeing these 4-year cycles, but we're in a completely different ballpark at this point, right? The actual change in the supply was a lot less from this halving than it was from previous halvings. And we've got such a broader market. We've got really deep liquid futures. We've got really global markets trading this thing 24/7 in a completely unregulated way. And it's basically the only truly free market commodity in the world. And it's got real price discovery going on in real time. And we see those huge swings. Some of that might be manipulation, but that's all part of price discovery. So I think we're probably going to see a lot of continued volatility for a while. But the way that I tend to tell people about it is it's this looks like it's volatile, but in fact, the dollar that we're tracking this against is just as volatile. So if we were tracking Bitcoin versus the price of beef and the dollar versus the price of beef, those graphs are both going to look pretty crazy.
I'm going to be inspired to look that up. I think trading people probably make that possible. But yeah, I agree. That's exactly what Bitcoin is. It's this first true market. And I do agree that as each halving will have less and less impact, but with each halving, Bitcoin miners will make more and more money. So that's a dynamic that people, just tend to like to ignore, especially in the altcoin space. But it really is kind of just this amazing set of incentives that magnify themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as like Bitcoin becomes a more mature asset, as like the ecosystem, which is growing but stable rather than like having with the supply shocks of the earlier kind of Bitcoin days, what does that look like? I think I spoke to Bitcoin Tina again, not to bring him up again, but we did a show called the hardest trade, and the idea is like, okay, there's like kind of three scenarios for what Bitcoin price does. This could be a standard bull market, blow off top, prolonged bear market, and then start the cycle again with the next halving, or Bitcoin never crashes and it just keeps grinding up, and that would be a very difficult trade, but all the holders would win. And then the last is Bitcoin is just chops, and then reprices, and then chops, and just stays flat. And he brings up the example of Tesla of being an example of a company that has done that. He's brought up the example, I think, Walmart as well, but just flat, reprices, flat. And there's really never an opportunity to like trade it. You either had it when it repriced or you didn't, and that was it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, the meme of like, we'll never see $10,000, sub $10,000 Bitcoin again, right? I think we're going to see more and more of those moments where Bitcoin never goes below a certain floor. And who knows what that floor is right now?
I mean, okay, 30,000.
Yeah, could be.
It's interesting to think about it. I mean, I feel like we could definitely see 40 again. 40 is not that far away.
Yeah, I hope so. I find it kind of funny that, all the laser eyes, all the people hoping for the Bitcoin price to go up, to me, those are people who are not all in. Those are people who want to sell their Bitcoins for more dollars. And, I want the price to go down so that I can use the dollars that I earn to buy more Bitcoins.
No, totally. And it's always painful. Like I do my stack on the same day every week. And like when it's going up, you're like, oh man, I just got so much less Bitcoin. And I miss the old days, like pre 10K Bitcoin that felt nice for a while. There's a lot of buying opportunities in that range.
Yeah.
But with that being said, Bitcoin's going to go a lot higher. So I'm so happy to buy at these prices. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's tough. People want those bull market vibes. I think that there's like everyone gets a bull market. If you stay in long enough, you get a bull market. So there's definitely that desire.
Yeah, there's a lot of people hoping for another sudden like 5x in price.
Yo, my fellow Bitcoin lovers, have I got something specifically curated for you? The Deep Dive is Bitcoin Magazine's premium markets intelligence newsletter. This isn't some pay group selling buy and sell signals. No, this is a premium Bitcoin analysis led by Dylan LeClaire and his team of analysts. They break down in an easily digestible way what is happening on chain, in the derivatives markets, and in the greater macro backdrop context for Bitcoin. This newsletter turns volatility into a joke. So hit up members.bitcoinmagazine.com and use promo code podcast for 30% off the deep dive. That's members.bitcoinmagazine.com, promo code podcast for 30% off. Divorce your paid group and learn why Bitcoin is the ultimate asset by Dylan and his team. My fellow plebs, the Bitcoin conference is back. Bitcoin 2022, April 6th through the 9th, is the ultimate pilgrimage for the Bitcoin ecosystem. The Bitcoin conference is the biggest event in all of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. We're leveling up and making this bigger and better than ever. I'm talking straight to the moon with the 4-day-long festival in the heart of Miami at the Miami Beach Convention Center. This has something for everyone. Whether you're a high-powered Bitcoin entrepreneur, a core developer, or a Bitcoin newbie, Bitcoin 2022 is the ultimate place for you to be with your people and celebrate and learn about the Bitcoin culture. So make sure to go to b.tc/conference to lock in your official tickets and use promo code Satoshi for 10% off. You want more off? Pay in Bitcoin and you'll receive $100 off general admission and $1,000 off whale pass. Those are stackable. So go to b.tc/conference and attend the best conference in Bitcoin history.
So, is there a possibility you think that doesn't happen this winter? Because like I'm saying that like there has to be some sort of like crazy price action.
I would go back to my contrarian position and just say that like so many people seem to be sure that that's happening this year that I don't think it's going to happen.
But that could secretly be a very good thing.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that, Dave?
No, I think that's it on price for me.
All right. Well, I mean, I think that, this is a good place to kind of wrap it, but I'm curious, what would your last word be to the Bitcoin Magazine audience?
Well, I'm very grateful to Bitcoin Magazine for all that you guys have done in the space. I was at the conference in Miami, and I've never seen anything like that. It's surreal to go from like this tiny little niche project in 2010 where I'm meeting people in a coffee shop and there's all of 8 people in the city that are trading with me. And then now we see this massive, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people were at that conference, but it's just a surreal difference. So thank you guys very much for everything you do in the space as well.
Well, that means a lot. I mean, yeah, the Bitcoin conference, we're trying to do the pilgrimage of Bitcoin. So that's kind of our goal. And next year we want to go even bigger. We're hoping that there's a bull market so that way this conference can get as big as possible. But with that being said, like we want to be as true as possible to the Bitcoin ethos and the Bitcoin counterculture. That is what has made Bitcoin Magazine, in our opinion. So we never forget that. We respect the plebs, and we want to like always be true to BTC. So happy that we can do that. And again, like it's just awesome seeing, like I would say like your company is like a hyper Bitcoinization company, right? So we love seeing hyper Bitcoinization companies out there that are helping like get Bitcoin into everyone's hands in ways that make sense for them, right? Making it easy for grandma is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. Well, Dave, like, are you active on Twitter? Where can people read more about your stuff? You mentioned you did some research. Where does that live?
Yeah, the research I think is in a blog post on our website on the blog section on bitcoinwell.com. You can find me on Twitter as Bitcoin Brains, and you can find my website as well at bitcoinbrains.com. That's something I didn't even bring up, is the fact that I'm widely regarded as the strongest and best looking Bitcoin entrepreneur in Canada. And you can find some more information about that on my website. So yeah, those are probably the best places to find me.
Awesome.
And
well,
everyone should everyone should have a look at our stock. We're traded under the ticker BTCW on the Toronto TSX Venture Exchange, and we've been on there since early August, and exciting things are coming.
All right. Well, man, again, public Bitcoin companies offer a very interesting position. So we don't have to get into that on this one. I'm sure we'll have another call. But Dave, thanks again for coming on to the show. Everyone, go follow Bitcoin Brains. Go check out everything that Bitcoinwell is doing. And check out Bitcoin Magazine, bitcoinmagazine.com. Go check out our print magazine. We have a beautiful print magazine, the El Salvador edition, that just came out for pre-orders. So international pre-orders coming out. I mean, I believe by the time this comes out, will be out. So go and get your international pre-order, get your US-based pre-order, and get your Bitcoin magazine El Salvador edition. With that, peace.
Yep.